Okay, public hearing for a street vacation portion of North 10th Street adjacent to 1020 Columbia Boulevard. I'm going to turn it over to Jenny.
Jenny Mitchell, Associate Planner. So tonight, this public hearing is about a street vacation on North 10th. The request is Harvey Bilton. Like all street vacations, it requires that the petitioner get consent from at least 2/3 of the affected area. He went and got signatures for 79 and nearly 0.5% of all affected areas. Mostly the school district and his own property. So Harvey actually owns, so Harvey owns this property, and this property. This is actually the location of Meriwether Place on this lot here. Okay. The parking lot for the event center is here. And then the property that is vacant is here. And there's also a single family dwelling on this southern one. So on this aerial, on the next map, if you could show me that. So she's gonna have to rotate real quick. So this shows that the building's a little bit better. So there's the event center, there's the single family dwelling, and here's the vacant lot. The reason for the requested street vacation is so that he can access and develop this lot. He may want to talk a little bit more about that. This is the proposed vacation area. It's 25 feet wide. You can't see it very well, but there is a city sewer line that runs diagonally through a portion of the requested vacation area. And then also to the north, you can see the tail end of it here, is a large storm line that runs through the Willamette Street right-of-way. As you know, or you may know, that's a huge cliff. It's a big valley, and it's got a very big storm line that runs through there. So the likelihood of that street ever being developed is pretty slim. So on the last map, which is where I'll leave it for the rest of the presentation. Could you maybe zoom out just a little bit so we can see the entire, perfect. Okay, so this map shows what's an existing driveway. It's graveled almost entirely within the proposed vacated area. And you can also see the sewer line here that runs through the property. So let's talk a little bit about streets. So North 10th Street is classified as a local street according to our TSP. And local streets typically have a standard right-of-way width of 50 feet. The existing right-of-way currently is 90, which is extremely wide. The TSP also allows us to use the skinny street standard of 40 instead of 50 when the proposed uses or future uses are predicted to be less than 200 ADT. So ADT is average daily trips, and the average house has about 10 ADT. So we figure with Willamette Street not ever going to be developed in the near future because of topography challenges and the storm line. And then this right-of-way only serving 3 properties, even developed at its highest intensity, would probably never serve more than 200 ADT. So we use the 40-foot right-of-way standard, and that leaves us 50 feet. So half of 50 is 25 because you give half of the vacated street to one side, half to the other. And so that's why the request is 25 feet. So we asked utilities if they had any comments, and of course city engineering saw that sewer line and wanted to maintain a utility easement over the northern half of the vacated street. So that would ensure that the sewer line is within an easement. And also related to that, in order to maintain the line, they currently use this driveway. And so in the future, if this property were to be developed, we would likely require either a new driveway with shared access or a stub street over in the remaining right-of-way. And either way, we want to make sure we can access that line. So there's an access easement requirement to get to that line, either over the entire proposed vacation or over the new access, whether it's a street or a shared driveway for the new development. Both of those methods, we just want to make sure we can get to that line to maintain it. I think I covered mostly what's in the staff report. It's a pretty simple vacation compared to other vacations we've seen. The biggest things are related to the utility and access to the utility. So there are 3 recommended conditions of approving this street vacation. The first is that we maintain access. The second is that utility easement. And then another is when development occurs that we can either remove that easement or have a new access easement over it. So if you have questions about that.
Generally, when you vacate the street, you usually do both sides, correct, or not?
No, in this case, the petitioner's request is just for their portion. It's not a requirement.
And 90 feet is abnormal. A lot of our streets are 80.
Yep.
feet.
This is an abnormally wide
Yes.
right of way.
Yeah.
And we're still maintaining a minimum right of way width for this area.
And it has a cliff on, a very large cliff.
Yeah, the staff
Yeah,
report has a
the
photo of
property.
how steep that cliff is in the
That's a
back.
canyon, and we're never gonna develop
Yes.
that.
Yeah, pretty much.
So the maximum development will be whatever they put on the property.
Most likely. I mean, the properties could be redeveloped at a higher intensity, and we're still planning for that
And it would
future.
require us, that would require utilizing the stub street then too as well.
Yeah, so the type of street would depend on the type of development they propose
Yeah.
on that lot. So it would meet whatever standards we have at that time.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I don't have my,
Oh, you don't?
that's okay,
Matt,
I can use,
It's not on.
Can you turn yours on? So Jenny, can
turn
you?
this on, your microphone's on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go.
Anyways,
Now you got two.
I don't have the sheet here, but we have comments back from the school, or the school wasn't positive about the development?
So the school actually signed off as one of the affected properties.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how does this change the school crossing? How does it change that? Does it make any change to that?
No, so this actually just takes what is undeveloped right of way and gives it to the abutting property. It has nothing to do with the actual Columbia Boulevard right of way. I think the street crossing is a little further south too, isn't it, if I remember right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I kind of knew this was coming, but I had in my head and envisioned it in a different spot, so it's like,
Oh, okay.
there.
Yeah, the gravel driveway was actually surprising that it's almost entirely within the street to be vacated. I was surprised when I went out.
Okay.
So, I think it's time for the petitioner to talk. If
Yeah,
you
those
don't
in
have any
favor
further
of.
questions, yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Hello.
Hello, could you state your name, please?
Sure, my name is Harvey Bilton, and I think, yeah, pretty much everything Jenny said is kind of right on. We basically use that, most of that existing area we're asking to vacate as a driveway currently. And I don't remember what she said exactly, but I was doing the math, so it's 90 feet wide and we're looking for 25, which will actually be 65 feet, not 50. And to answer Keith's question, you asked about,
The neighbor across the street.
whether we vacate. I actually talked to that guy, and he says he wants to kind of vacate the whole thing, but he just wants to leave it empty, which we want to develop it and eventually put in either some row houses or, you know, like a fourplex or something like that back there. You know, try to keep with the Main Street corridor, you know, theme, so it's parking in the back off the street and then that kind of thing. And potentially sometime down the road, we might consider doing more in the front where the house is existing, but, you know, one step at a time.
Yep. It is. All right, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else in favor? Okay, anybody neutral? Okay, opposed?
Joe Vance here. I'm opposed for basically historic reasons. Coming from other parts of the U.S. where streets have been narrowed down for convenience, and then 100 years later you're in trouble, I see the same thing. We've had some streets narrowed down up on Nob Hill, which precludes, we'll say, better development 100 years from now. Makes perfect sense right now for the next 50 years. I have no problem with that. The problem with the sewer and that should be solved other ways. But this business of giving up land for quick convenience, historically in other areas of this country has always proven wrong. If you want to see something really bad, go downtown Boston, where the streets have been narrowed down, and that's obviously in colonial times, and now they're walkways rather than motorways. So I would be very careful narrowing down any right-of-ways. You may want to bring it down to the standard 80, but I would not go below that. And obviously, the developers, for their convenience right now, would like it. And for them, it makes perfect sense. But I would be very careful for historic reasons, and not the next 20 or so years, but the next 100 years. We assume the town will still be here and be doing other things. So that's really my point of view on why it shouldn't be done, or at least only bring it down to the standard 80.
Steve, you pointed out Nob Hill as an example. I guess this is on. You pointed out Nob Hill as an example. Where specifically on Nob Hill, and how recently was the
I think it was about 6 years ago, we narrowed up some roads up there, which basically were parking spaces and got turned into lawns. Things like that, it's a creeping thing. If you look at 4th Street from St. Helens Street up to where it goes up the hill, that's been narrowed up also. It's nice when they put the development in, but for the next 50 or so years, it's a problem.
Do you anticipate big automobiles being around 50 or so years from now?
No, I really am more worried about streetscape and a better viewing of the homes and a better front of the homes. If you end up like a lot of steel towns where the homes are 5 feet back from the sidewalk, you see where it was convenient when the mill was down there and people walked to work. But later on, the situation changes and it very much puts the area almost in a blight, because there's this nice area and then it's narrowed down there. So it's a much longer term than the next 10 or 20 years.
Thanks for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other opposed? Okay, hearing none.
Do they get rebuttal?
Oh, rebuttal?
Sure.
So it's just like a normal.
Do I say my name?
Yeah.
Okay. Harvey Dilton. So one thing I can say, I totally understand what he's talking about, and the only thing I would point out is, as Jenny said, the 65-foot space that will be left, if that ever is turned into a road or, road and sidewalks or whatever, it can only go back about 150 feet before it has about an 80-foot, almost straight down drop off.
Mhm.
So even 100 years from now, I don't anticipate us building a bridge over that, what's currently a wetlands area. So, if that was a throughway to another street, I totally get what he's talking about, but it basically goes to a canyon that's a state wetlands area where all the water runs off out to the Columbia.
Okay, this hearing is closed.
Does it have to read anything?
We're gonna deliberate a little bit.